What's up, Whittier?
Welcome to What's Up, Whittier, a homegrown podcast.
A podcast to showcase Whittier's businesses, personalities, and hidden treasures.
Hey guys, producer Christine here with this week's Community Corkboard announcements. Every Friday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. we have the Uptown Whittier Farmers Market located on the corner of Philadelphia and Bright. Do you know any local musicians, or are you interested in having your own podcast or anything like that? Well, producer Christine is now like manager Christine, and we're putting together, meaning I'm working with Ricardo Diaz, and we're going to put in an internet radio station called WIPA Radio, Uptown Central Station. Go to WIPAradio.com to learn a little bit more. We want to do original programming, so we're looking to see if anybody wants to contribute. We just want to bring eclectic content to the airwaves, to the community. It's a really cool adventure that we're putting in the Poet Gardens. So our internet radio station studio is going to be at the Bank of America building, located on the corner of Philadelphia and Greenleaf. So the entrance doors will be on Philadelphia. So if you can imagine, there's a big window to the left. So if you walk, I don't know, maybe if you walked by recently or anything like that, if you peek into the window, you can see the studio, at least the skeleton of it. It's coming along. So with that, we're ready to start building our programming schedule. So you can email info@wiparadio.com. If, you want to reach out, I'll send you an application, get it back to me, and then we can start making some magic. For this week's Community Corkboard announcements, I'm going to go through Instagram and just see what we got going on here. Don't forget, you can send us announcements on Instagram if you tag us at What's Up Whittier. Whittier Earth Day celebration. Join the United Nations of Whittier, just like we heard in our last episode. Join us for their Whittier Earth Day celebration. This is going to take place on April 27th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's going to be a great day, great time for the family. It's going to be in Uptown Whittier, so make sure you come out and join this interactive workshop and free, fun-filled day. Also on Saturday, April 27th, join the Whittier Historical Society for their Fashion to a T annual fundraiser. This year's theme is Runway of Curiosity. So again, the doors open at 11:30 and lunch will be served at noon. Ticket prices are $40 for members and $45 for non-members. Children 12 and under are $20. So I went to the Whittier Historical Society's meeting the last couple months, and they really, want children to go to this tea party. It's going to be really cute. At 11:30, they're going to start a manners class. So obviously, you got to make sure you're on time for the manners class, right? To be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late. To be late is unacceptable. And yours truly is going to be the host. So I don't know if I spilled beans because we say it in the podcast episode, but I'm going to be your host. So again, this is at the Whittier Museum, 6755 Newlin Avenue, Whittier, California, 90601. This year, the museum is hosting an Alice in Wonderland themed tea party, showcasing the unusual and oddest pieces from our textiles collection. Don't be late, save the date. So, Saturday, April 27th, be there or be square. Wednesday, March 20th at 7:30 a.m., join the Whittier Chamber of Commerce for their Wake Up Whittier event. This month, it will be taking place at Liberty Plaza. Don't forget to bring an Easter basket for a child or a teen to Wake Up Whittier. All donated baskets benefit children and youth being served at Helpline Youth Counseling. Anyone who brings a basket that morning will be entered into a raffle for a $25 Starbucks gift card. Please join the Whittier Chamber of Commerce the third Wednesday of each month for our Wake Up Whittier networking breakfast. This popular monthly event is a great way to get to know over 200 fellow Whittier Chamber members and local business owners. You can hear important city updates. The mayor always does this cool thing, like 3 updates, and enjoy a hearty breakfast and stay connected with what's happening at the Whittier Chamber. Wake Up Whittier is a free event as part of your chamber membership, so feel free to bring a coworker, and it's $20, I believe, for all non-members. So for more information or to sign up as a free table host, please contact the chamber. The phone number is 562-698-9554. And also you can send an email to Courtney@whittierchamber.com. Alrighty, we have a coffee with the Congresswoman on Saturday, March 23rd at 9 a.m. Meet with Congresswoman Linda Sanchez in the city of Cerritos at 85 Bakery Cafe. The address is 11486 South Street in Cerritos, California. This is going to be on Saturday, March 23rd from 9:30 to 11 a.m. Drop on. Even though it's not in the city of Whittier, you can still drop by, still our Congresswoman, and you can say, hey, heard your episode on the podcast. It was really awesome. Thank you for doing that. It's really cool. I really do appreciate hearing feedback from the community about the podcast, and even when listeners have met past guests, it's like, oh, I didn't know this about you, or I didn't know that about you, and it's kind of cool. I like it when my guests, when our guests share that kind of stuff with me. It's really fun. Alrighty, I guess that's all I have for you this week in our community corkboard announcements. Definitely. If you want to mention anything, please email me, Christine at what'supwhittier.com, or you can, check out all of our social media at Whittier on Twitter, Facebook, at whatsup562 on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Whittier. You can follow me, producer Christine. Did you know that I'm a notary public? I most certainly am. So you can send me a private message on Instagram if you need any notarial services. So what is the California Notary Public? I'm just a representative of the state that's verifying that you are who you is. So bring your ID when you do that. You can also visit my website, christinesingerluna.com. So thank you for listening. And also follow Remo and Jessie. Remo is a really cool realtor, so you can go to remotherealtor.com. Check out Remo the Realtor on all social media. Jessie is a great architect, so you can follow Mr. Jessie the Architect. That's not his handle, though. You're going to go at J2Architects. Go to j2architects.com, and you can learn a little bit more about his services and things that he's done. Thank you so much for searching the podcast, downloading it, subscribing, and hitting play. Really appreciate all the support in the community. And if you or anybody else is interested in having their own podcast or their own program, anything like that, you're a DJ, if you want to contribute music, let me know. You can email info@wiparadio.com, and don't forget to go to www.wiparadio.com for more information. Alrighty, this is a really, really fun episode. Take it away, Jessie and Remo.
What's up? What's up, Whittier?
Dun, dun, dun.
And again, we have that beautiful intro by Christine because Remo once again decided to bail on us.
Well,
actually,
he's busy.
I don't know. Maybe we should do like 3 strikes, you're out.
3 strikes. Okay, well then this would be the 3rd strike.
All right, maybe 4 strikes, you're out.
Maybe. Well, best of 10. We'll do best of 10.
Best of 10.
We'll
That's
give him for 2019.
And Remo, if you're listening and watching, we definitely miss you. You got to come back, man. Maybe we should do another poll.
Yeah? What do you want the poll to say? Should we give him 10 chances?
A 4 strike, 4 outs and you're out, or 4 strikes and you're out, or 10 strikes you're out?
Okay.
There you go.
Alrighty. So we'll leave it up to you, the viewers, to decide if we should give Remo 10 chances or if we should give him 4 chances. But for now, since you and I are here,
that's right.
Let's start our interview. Today we have with us the wonderful Nick Edemeier, Ginny Ball, and Mary Dutra. Welcome to What's Up, Whittier.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Welcome. And so, obviously, and Christine, we're actually at the museum now. We're off location. So.
Yeah, actually, we're in the exact same spot where we recorded our episode 2 years ago in the archives room. Is that correct? Is this the archives room, Nick?
Yeah, that's correct.
Wow, 2 years ago. It seems like it was just yesterday that we did that interview. And again, we did it previously with Tim Traeger and Kyle Smith. And oh man, the conversation we had was awesome. Obviously, we had a lot of good knowledge on history of Whittier. And last time we had it, we actually said, we got to continue this. We got to keep coming back and doing episodes here at the museum, just for that specific reason. Be able to kind of spread that history because there's a lot of rich history in Whittier. Not a lot of people know there's a museum in Whittier, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so we got to keep coming back just to make sure that everybody keeps it in the radar. And for those that are new listeners or new to Whittier, that they know that there's a museum. And with that said, I'm going to get into asking a little bit about yourselves. If you guys could give us a little intro, just so our audience knows who's who. And then for those Instagram listeners or viewers, if you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask, shoot them over and we'll read them out loud. So with that said, I'll let you ladies start.
Okay, I'm Mary Dutra, and my husband and I moved to Whittier in 1987. What we loved about Whittier was it wasn't flat ground. It had all the hills and the trees, and we saw the Uptown area, and we fell in love with it. So we've raised 3 children, got involved in the city, volunteering, and of course my husband's a city councilman. I guess we've did that about 12 years ago. And so we like to give back to the community. I'm the newbie of the Whittier Museum Board. I was elected to be on the board in January. So I'm really enjoying it. And it's just so full of history of our city. And it's really a hidden gem that the community and even outside of the community needs to know that we're here and what the museum has to offer.
That's huge. You're right. I mean, in terms of the history, again, it's a little hidden gem. Ginny?
Okay, I'm Virginia Ball. I usually go by Ginny. And I came to Whittier in 1963 and have been here since. We raised 3 daughters here. And the museum, we started talking about the museum around 1978. And we were meeting with the Historical Society in living rooms, people's homes. And when we got the Bailey House, which was in 1973 that we opened, we asked the people in Whittier if they had anything from 1887 or the 1880s in their attic or basement. We don't have too many basements here at Whittier, or garage. And we just had so much interest that was when we decided we need to get a museum. And we started looking for a museum for a couple of years. And it was in 1980 that we found the museum, the building. It was already in escrow. So we had to talk the owner out of selling it to us. And we were very fortunate because the buyer at that time had a long list of what they wanted done before they would purchase the building, although they were planning to just tear it down. But my husband passed away in 1980, and actually this room that we're sitting in is dedicated to him. And my 3 daughters and I came in and worked in the museum and helped to sort things and archive things. And I've been on the board off and on since then. And it's a little bit about me.
That's just the beginning, I think, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot more behind that introduction.
Definitely.
But before, obviously, we get into more details, we also have another guest. If you want to...
Hello, my name is Nick Edemeier. I'm actually at the museum office and archives manager, and I've actually been with the museum now for just about over 5 years now. To be honest, I don't live in Whittier. Okay, don't start the mob, I promise you. But I'm just as committed. I actually came to Whittier when I started at Whittier College. And I actually recently graduated from there just a year ago. With a degree in history. And I started the museum first as an intern from the college with the history department. And ever since, I've never left.
There you go.
I basically climbed the ladder from being intern, volunteer, board member, and before you knew it, I was just the last person who actually knew how to do anything in this building, so they said, just hire him.
That's a perfect way to start, right?
And we're lucky to have him.
That's right. So in terms of the obviously the way you guys participate and obviously give back to the museum itself, is there anything specifically that you guys are tasked with or are involved with here at the museum? I know we have a couple events that we're going to talk about, but beyond that, is there anything? I guess what is the responsibility of a board member and here at the museum? Because again, for those that don't know, the museum is a nonprofit, right?
It is.
Oh, yes.
It's a nonprofit organization, and you guys pretty much run by whatever, I don't even, do you guys even charge at the museum?
No.
Donation only.
There you go, donations.
Yeah.
So it's really just donations and membership, which I'm a proud member. I know Remo's also a member. And Christine's a member.
Thank you.
And by the way, Christine, even though she looks really young, I think she's probably, how old are you, like 150 or something like that?
You look really good.
With all the Whittier knowledge
One
she
of our
has.
artifacts.
That's right.
Because I drink the water from Whittier.
There you go.
I was going to ask you what you drank.
Well, probably the number one thing with the board is that we have to be fiscally sound, because we want to keep the doors open, and it's very hard. There are grants out there, but there are not a lot for museums. Most museums are sponsored by a very well-to-do philanthropist or an organization or a city or a county, and we don't have that. So we get support from the city every year in a grant, and but the rest is by donations and a few grants, donations, membership, and our fundraisers.
That's right.
And we try to make our fundraisers fun. And so this year we're getting ready for the Alice in Wonderland tea, which we have a tea almost every year.
That's right.
I think we started about maybe 14, 15 years ago. And this year our theme is Alice in Wonderland. And that's going to be on the April 27th here at the museum. And you can call the museum to get tickets or email us. And we'd just love to have you come. And we always have a fashion show. And the fashion show is the hit of the day, because we try to bring out things that are new and different in our textile archives.
And now that we're talking about it, I mean, do you guys want to speak a little bit more about the tea? Because I know it sells out, right? Actually, both
we
sell
try.
out, right?
Yeah, we're hoping to sell 150 tickets for the April 27th tea. Ticket prices for members is $40. Non-members is $45, and children 12 and under are $20. So what we're doing this year that's different than the previous years is we're trying to encourage the young children of people to come to the tea. And at the beginning of the tea, we're actually going to have a little manners class or an etiquette class
Nice.
of how to serve yourself and drink your tea, which will be, I think, a lot of fun for the children as well as the adults. Our theme, as Jenny had said, is Runway of Curiosity. So we're trying. Lori, what's Lori's last?
Lori Asagawa.
Yeah, she does chooses all of the clothes and stuff that we have here at the museums that's been donated throughout the years. And so she's trying to find some unusual things that we can have in the fashion show. And then Nick does research on the items that were donated. And we're lucky this year because Christine's going to be our MC
Dun, dun,
for
dun.
the fashion show. So we're really excited about that. There's also an opportunity to buy a table of 8 for $300. And at our tea, of course, we have tea, we have homemade scones, we have mini sandwiches, we have fruit. Everything that you would have for a proper tea is what we serve at the tea. And it's coming along real well. We just need people to buy the tickets and join us for a lovely afternoon tea.
And is proper etiquette to put the pinky up when you're drinking tea.
Well, you'll find out when you come to the tea.
There you go. Damn. I was trying to get a sneak peek. Actually, I was going to say, is it limited to just children to take that?
No, it will be for everybody.
Because I might know somebody who needs to take that.
Yes.
You might be a little bit too big, but it'll work. We'll get him a small chair.
Yeah, so we have a great committee. We're working hard. And I started coming to the tea, I think, about 4 years ago. I emceed 3 years. So I'm glad Christine is doing it this year. And it's really a nice afternoon.
So is it actual tea? Like, are we drinking several teas? Or is it one tea? Or
No, there's several teas to choose from with the teapots, and it's everything.
The whole 9 yards, huh?
The whole 9 yards. Yes.
So-
It starts at 11:30 and usually goes till about 2:30
Okay, so it's a midday kind of event. And that's obviously here at the museum.
on
Yes.
Saturday,
Oh, yes.
Okay.
April 27th.
Very cool.
And it's upstairs, but we do have an elevator.
And I was going to say, so part of these events, I think any event you guys host here at the museum, obviously you guys have kind of like a like event area or event space.
We do.
But even so that's on the, what is it, third floor, second floor?
Second floor.
So even kind of for those who have not been here yet, you could work your way up, right? I mean, kind of tour the museum
Yes.
before you get there.
The
Oh, yes.
museum will be open, and I'm sure Nick will have 1 or 2 docents here to help people go through the museum and explain things to them. And they can do that either before or after the tea.
There you go. So get your tea
and
on.
That brings up a very good point that we are always anxious to have more docents. And the docents can work either at the museum or at the Bailey House, the first home built in Whittier, which is over on Camilla, just off of Painter. And the docents are a very important part of the museum because they're the ones that explain the history to the people who come through.
Yes, I just like to say that when I first started at the museum, my first responsibility was being a docent, and I still do it even now. And I'm not gonna lie. When you first start, it's a little scary because you're a little unsure. Wait, my tongue is right. Wait, let me check my script again. But really after a week or two, you realize it's very exciting because you get to talk to different people, and a lot of them have a lot more stories that are not gonna be in your guide, and these are just wonderful things that you learn on the tours.
That's right.
I think I've learned more stories having talked to more people while giving a tour than I would have actually just looking around anyplace else in the museum. Yeah, so it's a rewarding experience because you learn so much from other people who've come in. And again, if you like being social and like to talk a lot, it's probably one of the best things to be.
It is.
Nice.
And one of the things that's special to our museum is we have one room that is the children's room. And this is a room where most of the things in there we have duplicates of. And so if something should get broken or dropped, we do have duplicates in our storage. But the children can come in and they can sit at old school desks and benches and put on costumes.
And play with old toys.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I used
I'm
to-
almost feel like you shouldn't have said that because now my kids are gonna come in and
I hope
I
so.
used to
cracking
bring
everything.
my girls when they were little, and that was their favorite room because they got to put on all the little dress and the aprons and play with the toys. So that was their favorite room when I used to bring them when they were little.
I'd say every time we had the school kids come here on their field trips, especially when they're 4th grade and younger, they tear the classroom up. They see it, they realize, oh, playtime, let's go at it.
Right.
it's the only time you could
Yeah.
break something.
They
or,
even have chalkboards so
Yeah.
that they can do their letters or whatever, and we can have a pretend class for them. And
so they're
fun.
doing the old fashioned texting, right?
yes,
Yes, that's right.
on a chalkboard.
I love it. I love it.
No autocorrect.
No, correct. That's fun. So I totally forgot that the museum also hosts or is part of maintaining the Bailey House. And how does that work in terms of the, I guess, workings of the museum? Is there somebody there full time or
No,
Okay.
no. The Bailey House is open on Sunday from 1 to 4. for tours, and that's when it's open to the public. But we also do school tours, a number of school tours, and those are during the week, Monday through Friday, when the children are in school. And we will do those whenever it's right for the teacher.
Okay.
And then we also do Boy Scout troops and Girl Scout troops and organizations. We have clubs of women interested in history that will come from San Diego or North, East Brea. We have a number from Brea. And we give these tours usually during the week, whenever it's good for them. And then they stop off for lunch, usually in Uptown Whittier, and then maybe go to the museum either that day or another day.
That's so cool. I mean, it's cool that you're able to kind of provide something that's still standing and kind of like what you mentioned, the first home here in Whittier.
Right, right. It was actually built as a sheep herder's bunkhouse. And that was in 1868 that Mr. Gherkin, like the pickle, bought the property and had a bunkhouse. So when the sheep were herded from San Diego or south up to L.A., they would stay overnight in the bunkhouse there, in the Bailey House. And the reason it's called the Bailey House is because Jonathan and Rebecca Bailey were the first family to live in that house, not use it as a bunkhouse. They added rooms and used it as their home. That's why it's called the Bailey House. And I like to say it's the Jonathan and Rebecca Bailey home. Rebecca gets left out very often. So we like to add her. And that was purchased in 1973, 72. It actually was going to be torn down to make an apartment. And my husband and I bought the apartment next door, and the owner wanted to sell the property of the Bailey House so that somebody else could build an apartment. And when we were looking at the apartment we bought, the Bailey House was for sale with it. He wanted it together.
Oh, wow.
And we explained to him that this looked like a very old house and didn't think he should. We didn't know at that time it was the first home. But then with some research, we realized it was the very first home. And that's when the Historical Society started raising funds to purchase it, and the city helped us. And while we take care of the inside, the city takes care of the outside, the lawns and not the shrubbery, because we have herbs and flowers from the 1880s.
No way, really?
We do.
So it's that original, huh?
Well, when we bought the home, Lois was still living, who was the great-granddaughter of Jonathan and Rebecca, and she had lived in the house. So she not only knew what went where in the house, but she knew what plants were outside, and she had actually taken pieces of the plants and grown them at her home. So we use those cuttings to put in the cuttings around the house. Because when the house was for sale, the man who owned it, he built the apartment next door and the one across the street. And he didn't do anything to the house, which was a blessing to us, because if he had taken out the floors, taken out the windows, some of the windows even have the rippling effect. They're the original windows of Jonathan and Rebecca Bailey.
Wow.
And if he rented it to hippies, there were about, I would say, between 10 and 15 people who lived there, owning the apartment next door. We got to meet a number of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't the most pleasant experience being next door to them, but it was lucky for the Whittier Historical Society because very little was changed in the home. And even today, we have the original floors, the original walls, and it's a treasure.
So,
Just air conditioning.
So in terms of the home, I mean, is it going through the preservation of the home? Was there anything that you guys found, like behind a baseboard or something. Like, what was that?
A pot of gold or something.
I don't know.
Oh, I wish. No.
Like anything interesting?
No,
that...
oh, yes, we have found a lot of things that were interesting. I mean, the windows, one of the bedrooms had been pushed out to make it a little bit bigger, and in the restoration, we brought that back. And a lot of this information we got from Lois Joyce, who was the great-granddaughter of Jonathan and Rebecca. In fact, her husband proposed to her on the porch of the Bailey House. They went to Whittier College. And so she knew what was in the house. She knew what had been changed in the house. And we tried to bring it back to the original. But we also found doorknobs, the glass doorknobs that are colored with the sun over time. They start out clear, but over 100 years you have colors. And so we have some really pretty blue doorknobs. There was an old croquet set that we found. And we have a few things from Jonathan and Rebecca, but most of the things are from the people around Whittier that donated them to the Bailey House when we asked for them. And,
was there any carvings on like wood that said like, you know, I was here and so and so?
I was this tall.
Yeah, like a measuring stick.
No, but the doorknobs on every door are very low because people at that time were short. We would consider them short.
Yeah.
And so the doorknobs are low. And a lot of times the children will ask, why are the doorknobs so low? Well, people were not tall 100 years ago.
See, that's when you come back and say, they were designed just for you.
But there were nails, old nails with the square heads.
Wow.
And we also have the roll-top desk of John Greenleaf Whittier, and it's the desk that he used, and it's a beautiful desk in there. We also have the bookcase of Abraham Lincoln. This was given to us by a nephew of his. Wow. And when he passed away, the widow gave us the bookcase. So Abraham Lincoln doesn't really have a direct connection with the Bailey House, but he was our president. So.
Yeah, I was just saying, so as a U.S., you know, that's huge.
It is.
Right. It's but he also has some other connections with Whittier, at least some of the key founders.
Yes.
Right, because Aquila Pickering, who was a Quaker during the period, who helped find the property to buy Whittier, he actually knew Lincoln, but he was actually taller than him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is true. They had met one time, and Lincoln was fascinating because he was taller than him. I think by at least by an inch, a little bit over an inch. It's written actually in the Pickering's obituary that when they met, Mary Todd, Lincoln's wife, had them stand back to back while she basically climbed a chair to measure them right on top.
That's funny. No, that's so awesome. I mean, it's again seeing, you know, or having stuff that belongs to somebody, you know, being, you know, that's a long time.
It is.
And just being, I mean, I'm thinking like myself, like just, you know, thinking like, man, what kind of thoughts went in this chair or desk, or imagine what was written in this, you know, desk and chair, you know, like. Just, I don't know, I kind of like to reminisce and see what I would do in that kind of situation.
You should be a docent.
Right, there you go. Done.
I have openings.
Well, and it is fun to be a docent because you learn these things. And as far as teaching people to be a docent, the easiest way is just to stand in the room and start at one point and just talk about what you see as you turn around. Yeah. And you don't have to, as a docent, you don't have to tell every story. You don't have to tell about everything that's there, but just what you see. And then usually the people that are taking the tour, they'll ask, what is this? Or why is this way?
Yeah.
And of course, Whittier was founded by the Quakers. Mm-hmm. So Jonathan and Rebecca Bailey were Quakers, as was Pickering. And the other people that started Whittier.
Yeah, I mean, I know when I walked around the museum, I liked that little model of the cityscape at that point, which was, you know,
with the oil wells in the back on the hills.
Again, you look at something like that, and you would never, at least for me, being in such a fast-paced kind of, I think of almost like metropolis, right? We're thinking downtown, like skyscrapers and all this. But then you look at that and it's like, man, there was really nothing to do. You know, like your neighbor was, blocks it seemed away from you. And again, it's that history that is makes a town, right? I mean, it's good to be able to showcase it. I know we're joking about the whole chalk and chalkboard, and that's the way we kind of learned, right? And communicated. But at that point, it was probably the trend, right? It was like chalk. Well, what is chalk?
Sure.
That's what they used, right?
So,
and you bring up a good point that nothing to do. I mean, when Whittier was founded, you didn't have the businesses. I mean, the businesses started, of course, but in order to have a successful town, you need to have enough businesses. And the bank was one of the first, and then, of course, the packing plant, where they were able to pack food in cans and send it to the Midwest and the East, where they had very few fruits and vegetables available to them year-round, whereas in Whittier, we usually have something growing all year. And the first crop they did was tomatoes, because tomatoes could grow within 3 months to where they could pick them, can them, and send them back east.
Wow.
And so tomatoes was the first crop. A lot of people think it was the citrus.
Yeah.
But, you plant the citrus tree, it takes a few years to get that orange or that lemon or lime. And so they did plant citrus, but that took a number of years. And first they did tomatoes.
Wow. That's interesting. You're right. Everything you see, majority of the stuff you see, it's always a citrus tree.
Yes,
right.
Right. And then the other thing that happened in the first year and a half that Whittier was started was we did have a delegation go to the capital of California and ask to have the Nellis, well, it wasn't called Nellis at that time, but it was the school here in Whittier, and it was for orphans or children that could no longer be taken care of. And that's the exhibit that we're planning for this summer, is for that school. And Nick just went up to Sacramento and got some more information about the school, and that'll be interesting.
You're right. I mean, so what you're referring to is obviously the Fred C. Nellis.
Right.
Well,
so
back,
they employed people to build it.
Right.
The cooks were from Whittier. The teachers were from Whittier. And it gave jobs, because otherwise, other than being a farmer, what do you do?
Yeah.
You have to have a job.
And now, again, I follow the museum on Instagram and Facebook and all that. When they were getting ready to demolish the buildings out at the site, I know I saw the museum kind of go through and start kind of preserving some of the stuff, some of the items that were there. Is that stuff that's coming back to this exhibit, or are we?
Well, Nick, you can probably speak to that, because...
So we spent about a couple months going through the property, checking all the buildings, and just digging around. And everything we did find, which is quite a lot. I mean, a lot of stuff. It actually took us, I think, as equal amount of time to catalog it as it did to find it all.
Wow.
Yes, right. And so we have it just stored all over the building in different places. But it is all items that will become on display, let's say, eventually, because we will be actually opening this exhibit in 3 phases. The first phase, which we plan for this summer, will focus on the Whittier State School period, the one from starting in 1890 towards the 20s. It was just before the person Nellis came into the possession of being in charge. And then later dates will be announced, and then we'll bring out a little more as it goes along. Mm-hmm. But everything we did find will become on display. Mm-hmm. It's either that, or it will become accessible in the archives for research purposes.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nick and Tracy Whitman have been putting articles in the Gazette. So as members, I know you've received those articles.
There you go, that too.
And it's really interesting to read about the school. And Nellis was the superintendent of the school. that really tried to have with the boys and girls. There were girls there at one time, but try to have them learn how to be live on their own and be independent. And it's interesting. I actually taught there for 5 years.
Really?
And I taught at night, and I taught at that time it was all boys, and this was in the 60s. And at that time, it was for the boys that were 18 and were going out into the community. And but I have to say, very few settled in Whittier. Most of them went where they were born, to other cities in the state of California. But trying to teach them how to rent an apartment, what kind of job they should get, finances, how do you manage renting a place of your own and getting food and so on. And so that's what I taught.
So have you been back to the facility after so long? It's been long before
I did go back. And
anything you notice, like, man, like that's changed or I don't know, some good memories? Like,
let me see. I'm trying to think how to say this tactfully. When I
saw a lot of carvings on stuff, right?
When I was a teacher there in the 60s, it was pretty run down.
Really?
The only building that was really beautiful, and I haven't seen the inside of it yet, was the superintendent's building, and they are keeping that building. They're going to try to have a business, maybe buy it and operate out of that building. It was beautiful. It was built in the early 1900s and had molding, beautiful natural wood molding. But the rest of the school was very run down, and when I went back to see it, it looked worse.
Yeah.
And there were several buildings that I think, well, I don't know. The state could have done a better job on maintaining it. Yeah. And I know when I was teaching for the 5 years, any table or chair that broke in my classroom, and I didn't have very many boys at one time. I'd have 5, maybe 6 boys at a time, but all the broken furniture was stacked in the back of the room. And it was still there 5 years later. It probably was there when when the building was knocked down. I don't know. But, it was not maintained.
Yeah. Yeah, because at some point it was a school, or started off as a school, right? And then it turned into a youth correctional facility.
Well, the first boys that went there, and there were girls that went there at the beginning too. Nick, you maybe know more about that.
Well, when the school first started in the 1890s, it was a reform school. A reform school for delinquents, boys and girls, orphans, those who had no one to take care of them, and they wanted them removed from the criminal system because they were being sent to real prison with full-grown men. And they realized this was not good for them. It doesn't serve anybody any good. These are 2 young kids. So they decided we need to do something different. So they started several state schools, not just Whittier. For both boys and girls. And one of the key ones was to start here in Whittier. And it started, and it had some rough beginnings, as you do, because it's a brand new system they're trying to initiate. It wasn't very favorable in the beginning because, again, some things did happen, basically in management, because they don't know how to properly teach these kids, how to behave or how to discipline them. It wasn't until Fred Nellis came that he initiated the program of removing corporal punishment, sending the girls to a separate school, making it just all boys, and getting funding for programs that would give them things to do. But it was for music, for crafts, education and trades learning. Bring them out into the community to show you can be part of this, contribute. If you're causing problems, why are you causing this? Let's give you some actual help. Really, actually giving you psychological treatment to figure out what your problems are. And that's it. And and after he died, that remained the model for the school and for many other facilities afterward. And so it continued like that for many, many years. I believe it's not until about the 50s and 60s that it became more correctional facility related under different management. And then the philosophy sort of starts shifting a little differently. And again, there are many different perspectives, whether if you were a former ward or a teacher there. And we've talked to so many different people, whether in both wards and former staff. And again, there are some tough things you hear about the place, but ultimately I hear so many positive things that still happen that come out of this facility, because it was still, because you got an education, you got a high school diploma, you had a place to sleep and eat, and ultimately you got a huge second chance out of life. And that's the thing I hear a lot from the former wards who've been there. It was a second chance for them. They wanted to stay because I'm here in school. Let me get my diploma. Then let me go.
Yeah. And that's key. I mean, you talk about a community. You take people, essentially, right? These boys and girls, to a place that they might not be familiar with, but you help them, kind of guide them through life, and all of a sudden, they come back to your community and give and contribute, or they go on to a different city and give that contribution. So that is awesome.
Yeah. I heard a rumor that Waylon Jennings, the country singer, was there and actually broke out. Is that true?
I don't know.
Let's put it out there.
Yeah, let's put it out there.
Okay, well, I know one that was Merle Haggard.
Maybe it was Merle Haggard.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah,
it was Merle Haggard. I knew one of them.
Yeah, but I hear a different bunch of names. People supposed to have been there. So
it was probably Merle Haggard that I heard, and I got the wrong name.
Yeah,
so that's pretty funny. So he did break out.
That's the story he tells.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, whether it's true or not, ask the state to give us his record.
That's right. We'll stick to that. Again, all with history, I mean, just around town, I love it just because, again, we were able to explain it to all our listeners. If you have not been to the museum, you guys got to get out here and see it with your own eyes and visit the museum. And before we get into hours and how to get here, do you guys want to talk more about the events? Any other events you guys got coming up?
We have 2 a year, which is the tea, and then in October we have the Night of the Museum, and also in October we have our Halloween Fest, where the museum passes candy out to all the children in the community.
Nice.
And last year, how many came?
500 was it?
No, we had over 1,000.
Over
Wow.
1,000.
Really?
We doubled last year.
Because it was 500 the year before.
Yes.
and
we had over 1,000 children come through the museum.
And the
for
museum
that.
is decorated for Halloween.
And remember, this is all free. It's
That's
what
right.
the museum provides.
Right.
And as we said earlier, the funds that come in are from these 2 fundraisers, from the little bit of grants we get, and from membership. Because when the schools bring the students here, it doesn't cost them anything. When students or clubs go to the Bailey House, it's all free.
Yeah.
And so if you're a family out there in Whittier and you want something to do to take your kids to on Saturday, you could come to the museum, or you could go to the Bailey House and then maybe go have an ice cream or something. Yeah. But this is all provided by the museum and the Bailey House. And like I said, it's a hidden gem. It's here for the residents of Whittier to enjoy, as well as the surrounding communities. Yeah. Another thing that wasn't mentioned is if you belong to a club or need a place to have your board meeting or something, we do rent out the second floor.
Oh, nice.
For these type of events.
Very cool.
And so you can call the office, and someone can assist you into utilizing the facility for those purposes.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Again, you talk about a place that could essentially house these community events.
Yes.
In a community building.
Yes.
Right? Awesome.
Yes.
I know you guys have some kind of new exhibit coming up also, right?
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, the Jose Ramos exhibit is coming up, and Jose Ramos is a Whittierite, and he started the Welcome Home Vietnam. And he actually rode his bicycle in Vietnam. And then he and a group of friends rode their bicycles from Whittier to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And Congress passed the day, March 30th, to be Welcome Home Vietnam Day. and that's for our whole nation. So we're very proud of Josue. He passed away, and one of the things we have for the exhibit is his bicycle. The bicycle that he rode to Washington, D.C.
That's so cool.
And maybe you'd like to say a little bit about Josue and what's being planned at the museum.
Let's see. Okay, so we're actually making a very special event on March 30th. It's a Saturday. Because part of opening an exhibit for Jose, we're actually reopening our entire military exhibit. So everything is getting a fresh coat of paint, things reorganized, things are getting a little bit dusted off. But it will be a wonderful opening for this special exhibit. It's in honor of Jose as a Whittierite and also as a veteran.
And again, that's so awesome because you talk about how do you exhibit somebody who's very important to the community in such a small area, right? I mean, I say small because I kind of took a sneak peek and it's full of stuff, you know, and so how do you display such a life, right? But again, you guys do it well. So that's the reason why you guys are here.
We're just very proud of Josue and Jose and the fact that he cared enough about the veterans. He was in the Vietnam War, so he's a Vietnam veteran, and the fact that they were not welcomed home like we do today. Yeah. And so he planned this event for them and has held it every year since it was declared Welcome Home Vietnam.
That's so awesome.
Now, Jenny, I see that it's also a car show.
I think they are going to have some older cars here.
Oh, yes. That same day, will actually be a car show across the street from us at Fiesta Hall. That's right. It's also to be some other vendors around, too. So probably popcorn, I hope.
So it'll be an all-day event.
And it's all day.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, starts at 10 o'clock and goes to 4
Very cool.
on March 30th.
Very cool. And then I saw also you guys are freshening up the Nixon exhibit.
Oh, we just did that and had the opening of that, and
I must say this just to have people come look at it. But it's there's a wall that has these like large, almost full size pictures of people who are or gentlemen who were very involved with him moving towards that presidency.
Right.
You guys should come out and look at it because you might recognize some of those names, and it's kind of cool to see those names there with him, but then those names, what they mean now in the community. So, anyways, for those of you who want to take a look, swing on by. What else do you guys have going on that's coming up or new?
Well, we have let me see, Ruby's Diner. We're going to have a chance to go to Ruby's Diner on March 27th, and that's going to be as sort of a mini fundraiser for the museum, and anybody can go, and if they pick up a coupon from the museum, then we get 20%, I think, of what is purchased that day at Ruby's, and that's March 27th.
Very cool. And again, for all the listeners, we'll put that on the show notes. So if you guys want to, participate, it'll be there. We'll also put links for all these other events that we just talked about. Yeah. So you can get
and really encourage people to be members. Yeah. It only costs $25 to be a member.
A year.
Don't tell Remo that because that's almost more. But
okay, it is more. Yeah. It's much more. There are different levels that you can be a member, but when you start, you might want to start at the $25 level, but then that entitles you to come to the museum with your friends and your family, and it also entitles you to the Gazette, and Nick does a beautiful job on the Gazette every month. There's always a story about something in Whittier, and has the coupons, has the information about the events going on. And whenever we have an exhibit, we also have speakers, and the speakers will come and talk about some facet of the exhibit. And that's always interesting. But you don't know unless you take the Gazette, and the Gazette comes with the membership. It can be emailed or mailed.
And that's the monthly newsletter, right?
Monthly
that comes
newsletter.
Out. Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where you're right. As a member, you're able to get that access, get that information, stay up to date. And again, you learn more as you kind of participate more, get involved, and again, know more about the museum itself. So, so thank you guys or ladies for giving us that information. Anything else, Christine, that we missed on the? Because I know you're going to be the MC coming up.
Yes,
we won't
at the
say
tea.
we won't say how you're going to be the MC, but maybe it's or you want to give them a sneak peek now? we'll leave it as they got to show up.
Just be sure to attend the Whittier Museum in order to purchase your tickets. That's your hint, I guess.
Well, we're hoping that she's going to be Alice in Wonderland.
There you go. There you go.
And there might even be a bunny.
That Remo,
Mr.
that's you,
Rabbit.
Remo. If you're listening, we've just got you a new task. Before we close out the show, can we have a couple Whittier questions we usually ask to our members. We promise we won't get you in trouble, unless you want to get in trouble. And I say this, Mary, because when we had Fernando, he was like, "I'm gonna get in trouble with this response." And
I don't remember what he said.
it was with my wife. He goes, "I'm gonna get in trouble with my wife," and of course,
He said the donut shop on Mills and
By the Greenway Trail.
yeah.
So the first question is, if you have a go-to spot here in Whittier, what would that be? Whether it be, shopping, dining, eating, get an adult beverage.
We go to Steve's Barbecue a lot, and my son loves their ribs. I've actually known Steve since I was in junior high and didn't see him all these years. And when his store opened, Fernando and I went there for dinner, and he was looking, and he approached me and asked me, who I was, and then realized that we had gone to junior high. But we love the food at Steve's. We like the environment, so that would be our go-to place.
Nice. Jenny?
I would say Crepes and Grapes. Sandra's been in Whittier for a long time, and we always enjoy going there. And California Grill. If we have anybody at Whittier College that we want to entertain, we always meet at California Grill. And Nick has done a wonderful job there. He also helps the museum, and Sandra does too. So
Very cool.
Those are probably the two places that.
And now we're going to go to the person who does not live in Whittier.
I knew it was going to haunt me. Let's see. Well, one of my favorite places always, especially for lunch, is to go to Marco Polo's. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lunch special, $4.50, 2 pieces and a drink. You can't go wrong with that.
That's right.
It's either that or Memo's Cafe.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say those are probably my two favorite spots to go to, whether it's have lunch or dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Or both.
It has happened.
And Whittier has now become a destination town
Mm-hmm.
for other cities, and people come here just for the restaurant. We have so many new restaurants, too.
And slowly growing.
Yes,
Which is kind of
Exactly,
cool.
which is
Right.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very nice
Always
for the
fun
community.
to go to a new
That's
place.
right, that's right.
Yeah.
So if something's missing in Whittier, what would that be?
Disneyland.
There you go.
Amen.
That's a good one.
And say, oh, wait, what do you think this is? And say, I got Main Street.
That's true.
Anything you think is missing? Ginny?
It's just a wonderful place to live and raise a family. And we're just always happy to be in Whittier.
Very cool, very cool. I'm not going to ask you because I know your answer. It's a museum, just getting the rights to the museum, no? No?
See, I'm not going to dig for that with the answer, but we may have a point.
There you go.
You may have a good point. I think we should explore that one a little more.
The last question is a more kind of any fond memories of Whittier? Anything like, man, I remember this and that, or Remo's favorite one was the Neko Neko, where he had good memories there.
People like Skateland. That's a popular
Yes.
Loved
It
Skateland.
was. Yeah. And every year we have the Founders Day. It's always fun to see the things that come in at Founders Day, and it's in May.
And that's actually coming up.
It's in May.
Yeah.
First weekend in May,
Yes.
I think.
And it's the 125th
25th.
Yes.
anniversary, yeah.
Wow.
And it used to be that they had a picnic for everybody that was over 90 years old, and that's something that we may try to bring back, because right now we have demonstrations of things that happened in 1880 and how to weave and how to make a braided rug, and the churning of butter and baking bread and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's always a fun event because that brings back memories of Whittier.
That's right. Oh, what? I'll say, Nick, is there anything going through your cataloging or just a museum of man, I didn't realize that existed here in Whittier?
Let's say, well, I've been saying that for 5 years. It's even, we worked in the archives so long, and say, wait, that was here? Wait, that used to be there? Let's see, I think I've run out of them the last couple of years.
Is there something that's that you've gone through that was just way out there? You're like, man, I would never have thought that was here.
Let's see. That probably would have been, just before I graduated, and I was still an intern. I was doing research here at the museum. Was actually the history of the Whittier's first cemetery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Founders Memorial Park. So then I was still a little bit of a novice when it comes to full Whittier history. Even after a year, there's not enough to know. Yeah. But no, just learning about the history of that cemetery and park.
That's right.
Alone, was like, wow. Well, I hope so. It got me to graduate with an A.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't know that we actually have photographs and copies of the newspaper, Whittier newspaper, back to the very beginning.
Oh, that's right.
Of the newspaper for Whittier, and there are pictures there that some of them show what Whittier was like. What was the street like? Downtown Whittier, Greenleaf in 1890, and
is that the Whittier Daily News, or is it?
Well,
it
had
called?
a different name
through
the years, but right now it's the Whittier Daily News. And when the Whittier Daily News closed, or they didn't close, but they moved location, they had already taken all their photographs in their file cabinets, and they digitized them, and that was the way they were going to keep them. They didn't want the actual pictures. And we had our business right across the street, Quaker Made Dairy, and they came over and they said, can you think of anybody who would like all these pictures?
Really?
And on that day, at that time, I bought all the file cabinets that we have here, and they came from the Daily News, but they had all their pictures. Some of them are really old, before 1900.
Oh, yes.
And we got the originals. They have the copies, the digitals, and I guess, much easier to keep that way, but we have the actual picture.
That's right, the original.
That's right.
The original. That is so awesome. Well, like we ended last time, I think we have to do this again and kind of start getting a little bit more history about Whittier. I think we have to do it sooner than later. We won't probably wait that long. But again, thank you, ladies, for coming on, and thank you for coming on and participating.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming by again.
And we'll make sure that Remo sends in his yearly check for his membership, and he stays top of the list. And then again, Remo, if you're listening, you're gonna be the new rabbit for the event. So get ready. That's what happens when you don't show up. With that said, again, thank you, ladies, and we'll see you soon, Whittier.
Thank you.
Thank you.